Hello and welcome to the Orchid Hut. My name is Dana and thank you for joining me in this one thing you need to know about clipping Phalaenopsis bloom spikes. So there actually is one maybe best way to do this if you choose to clip your Phalaenopsis spike to a stake. And in previous videos, we discussed how to recognize that a bloom spike is developing. So I will link that video in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. And then a few weeks ago, I also made a video about how to place the stake and begin to train the spike to grow in the direction that you prefer it to grow. So that's kind of where we are today with this gigantic Phalaenopsis orchid. She has a really beautiful white bloom, and one of our viewers, Yvelle, suggested that we name this orchid Penelope. So from here on out, this gorgeous white gigantic Phalaenopsis will be called Penelope. So I think that's a great name for this orchid. So you can see that her bloom spike is developing really nicely, and you can see the stake that was placed several weeks ago. And my goal is to have the bloom spike arch over this side of the plant. And so you can already tell that that's happening. And I have been first turning this plant about a quarter turn every day to get it to grow straight. And a few days ago, when it was tall enough, I used just a piece of kitchen twine to go ahead and draw that spike closer to the stake. And today what we're going to do is put the very first clip on the bloom spike. So let's go over what's appropriate and maybe what might not be such a great idea to use in the way of a clip. Okay, so as you can probably tell, between the diameter of the stake and the diameter of the spike, this is actually a pretty large area that we're going to need to clip around. And the other thing to recognize is that, of course, early on, the spike is too short to really clip to anything. And then, while it's still young, it's very pliable and flexible. And it is more tolerant of, training and being drawn in closer to the stake, like with this piece of string, and it's more tolerant to being clipped at this point. If you wait too long, the spike begins to harden off, and it goes through a phase where it's like really crisp, and it will snap off rather easily if you wait that long to be able to clip it to the stake. So you want to catch the spike while it's still very soft and pliable, and then as it matures, it's going to get harder and harder, and then at some point it's just nearly impossible to clip it because you can no longer affect what direction it goes. So we're at the perfect time to clip this today. And so let's look at our choices for clips. So this is a rather large situation here with the stake and the diameter of the spike itself. So a clip like this is far too small, and if you try to use something that's too small, you run the risk of damaging the spike and or snapping it off. So you want to avoid these smaller clips that you often see on mini Phalaenopsis. For some of those this is fine, but not for a Phalaenopsis this large. There's another type that appears to be a little bit larger, but again, this is not big enough to accommodate both the spike and the stake. So let's go up from there. This is a smaller clip that opens with a hinge. And this again would work for a smaller bloom spike and stake, but not necessarily for something this large, because you can see when it closes there's not a lot of space right there, and it would be too tight on the situation that I have. So we're not going to use that. And then we get to these, what I call butterfly clips, and they also have a hinge so that they open and close. But even these butterfly clips are not created equal. Let's have a closer look. If you notice on the clear clip, it opens a certain amount, and then if you look on the pink clip, it opens even more. So in the case that I have, I really want to use the largest clip possible. This white clear clip would be appropriate for most Phalaenopsis. It would probably be just fine. But because I have this pink one that even has a larger opening, I am going to be choosing to use this one. Okay, so let's get started. The first thing that you can do, of course, is remove the string. This was just here temporarily, although if you don't have an appropriate clip, it would be better to just leave the string rather than risk snapping the spike with something that's too small. Okay, now the next thing to notice about the clip is that on the inside where this hinge is, it can be a bit rough. And so I really don't want this rough part next to the spike. So I'm going to turn the clip so that the rough part is up against the stake, and then it will close around the bloom spike on the other side. Okay. And it is as simple as that. So hopefully you can see that the rough part of the clip is against the stake, and the little part that wraps around is hugging the spike on the other side. And as this grows, I will consider whether it needs to be staked another time as it gets taller and taller, but that stake will stay right here and will not be moved until the plant is finished blooming. So, if you learned something new or enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. The subscribe button will be coming up in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. Thank you so much for watching, and talk to you next time.